Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, Sattology means a science of truth or study of truth. And opposite of that is mythology, which means a science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Mythology has been spread for all the Vedic cultures or connected to Sanatan Dharma. It's been branded as mythology or pagan or shamanism or animism or pantheism. Now, literally telling you, all these words all point to only one uh, meaning. That is, they are inferior to Abrahamic faith or Christian faith. That's how the Western world works. And it's called academic superiority, then there is racist superiority, and all those things are there. So the word, we totally debunk the word mythology itself applied to Vedic scriptures. And if we test by the same parameters by which they test the Vedic culture or Hindu culture, then the entire Abrahamic philosophy is mythology. So we call ourselves Sattology and they are mythology. It's just an adjective you can use for truthful and verifiable historical incidents, either astronomically or archaeologically, or if you have the skills, then you can make it archaeoastronomy. So I have a very, very special guest. I'm going to speak about the oldest war fighting skill, just the bow and the arrow. In India, is called Dhanurveda. Dhanur means is like a bow, Dhanush, and Veda means knowledge, knowledge of archery. So without delay, let us welcome Pankaj Gandhi.
Namaste everyone, and Namaste Aditya ji. So thank you for inviting me today, and it will be honor to talk with you about this topic. And today I'm thinking we are most probably going to go with some basic introduction and how this journey start for me. So maybe I will start with that, and then we can go to the subject more detail.
Now, before you start off,
Mhm.
why this topic interests you?
So what happened is like, in around 2017, 18, I was start like, move towards the archery and I wanted to learn it. So I start learning from basics and start going on the archery range here and start practicing. So when I start practicing, I was like reading about some material and I noticed that we have so much material available from all over the world, like as a traditional archery. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have people who follow the traditional archery the way we used to 150 years before. And I was trying to find as much as information we can have it and try to figure it out, like what can we do to bring back that particular knowledge system. And that was my main goal for, and try to make sure that people are aware of that we didn't lost. Like whenever I talk to the people, they always say that, oh, Dhanurveda is lost. We don't have that Veda, so we don't know what was in it, and we don't know what those astras were, and we don't know anything. And I was like, in my brain, it's like, no, we have so much information available. Unfortunately, we start practicing it, and nobody went back to go into the detail to understand why it is like, it is not just for army practice or something. It will be great for sports also, as a traditional sports for India. Like we only focus one or two sports in India, but like this is will give you to bring it in the Olympics also, because it will help in create more through traditional way, and a lot of people will happy to learn that. And when I talk to people, they wanted to learn it. Unfortunately, we do not have a proper system. So my goal was like, let's bring the all information first, and then work with some acharya and some archer in India and put the as a program, and then basically come up with like, we need to build this whole system of Dhanurveda back and bring this classical artwork back into the real world.
Yeah, most of the Indian archers nowadays, they come to the US for practice. Like I met
Yes.
many of them near my house where they come, Olympic archers, they come here.
Mm-hmm.
Because the US is the number one, Korea is the number two, and number three probably is India today. But
Okay.
but they keep on, Indian women team does better than the Indian men's team.
Yes. Yes.
And So it's a growing sport, and
Hmm.
it has many advantages also. It helps you focus more, and it brings discipline in your life because you're handling a weapon as well as a sports kit. So you have to be
Right.
very responsible for that.
And physical fit also. It's not just like people think is bow and arrow doesn't make you physical fit. It's make you like it's strong. It make you physical fit, and it's good for
Oh
like a
no,
lot of
ask me
things.
about it. You have 48 pounds you have to pull.
Oh wow. Yeah,
I have my grain is 48 pounds, and
that's
so
good.
my bow, I have to pull 48 pounds before I can release it.
Yes, I practice with 45.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
some people use 62. That's the
Yeah, yeah.
highest grain.
Yeah, no,
And
I mean we have people like in our little archery group, we have people who goes up to 100 pound
mhm.
with the
So
long bows. So it's crazy to see it. But so for introduction, it's like I just already said that like a lot of people know that like we don't have Dhanurveda. But when I was like start digging into it, I found so much information about Dhanurveda or archery within India. So I let me share my screen and then we can talk about a little bit more.
yeah. So my screen will show the logo, and so just ignore it. You continue your presentation then. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'll come back to you after you finish it.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So first of all, Dhanurveda mantra. So we have Dhanurveda mantra called Om Namo Bhagavate Dhanurvedaya, same as like a Gayatri mantra. So this is our mantra. And another thing is I didn't include in this presentation, but we do also have a Dhanurveda deity, and it's define its manifestation and its form properly, that how it looks like it, how many angas of the Dhanurveda is. And I'm working with an artist right now to predict like what can we build, like the describe in the book, and we can have a deity available soon also. So how old the Indian archery is, and like I'm going with the I'm gonna go with one by one picture. So if you see the first left picture on the top, these are the arrowhead actually found in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa in Indus Valley civilization, which is our Vedic civilization. And so we have it like the copper arrowheads were used at that time, and very sharp, very like a detailed arrowhead. You can see it, and it was using almost for 3 to 4 thousand year old. And in the bottom picture in the painting, this is from originally Bhimbetka, which is in the central India, Madhya Pradesh. And over there, it's those cave paintings were predicted somewhere between 10 to 15,000 year old at least. And some researchers say it might goes up to 30,000 year old. So if you see the prediction, we have hunter gatherer at least that year old. And the same one on the top right corner, there is a picture of the whole warfare, and it's basically predicting the whole army formation and was over there, which also somewhat between 10 to 15,000 year old. So we can trace back our archery at least that old, which were using it within the Indian subcontinent. And in the center picture, if you see the marking of the bow, which is like one of the most unique bow, and have we can call it like double curve bow or the double reflex bow, which was actually excavated in the Sanoli most recently, and and we tried to replicate it like how it looks like it. So in the last picture on the right bottom, we basically try with the software, we tried to see how the bow actually look like it. So that was the bow originally look like it. And whenever we talk in the future more detail into the archery with Dhanur Vidya in detail and types of bow as all, it's actually defined in one of our book that how what this bow is and how it should look like. So before that I didn't know that we can able to find that particular type of bow. But when this excavation happened, and we actually able to find that type of bow, which actually basically tell us that how old the literature is, and how old these bows and arrows detail can go. And then the second here is another part is like I pick up one shlok from the Rig Veda, from Mandal 6, hymn 75. So a lot of people are probably not sure about that, what Mandal's arrangement is. So Mandal 6 in Rig Veda is actually the most oldest Rig Veda mandal is, and in that particular whole mandal actually dedicated to Bharadwaj Muni, and one of the disciple of Bharadwaj Muni named Payu Bharadwaj was basically written this particular hymn 75, which was the last hymn of Mandal 6, which called the Sangram Sukta, in which it's basically glorifying and talking about the bows and arrows and chariots and battles. So it's basically talk about everything what can be used, like they talk about the kavach, they talk about the tarkash, they talk about the types of arrows, how the bow should look like and bow string should look like. So everything was defined in that particular hymn. And so I picked just the one of the shlok which called Dhanvanaga, Dhanvanan Jing Jayam, Dhanvana Tivra Samjo Jayam, Dhanush Pakam Karproti, Dhanvana Sarva Paridisho Jayam. So it's basically talking about just like let's be victory of us, and let we win the battle, and the bow bring grief and sorrow to the enemy, and we can win all the region with our bow. So it's just basically talking about the importance of the bow in particular shlok. And as per like a lot of researchers, especially the Nilesh Ogji, basically if we talk the Rig Veda, it can go somewhat between 2020 2000 BCE. So we can imagine that how old the Indian archery system can go. And then I need to talk about the importance of Takshila. So a lot of people not sure like what we have, like the oldest university was in Takshila, and it's called and also that the Mahabharata was the first narrated in Takshila, also in the Janmejay Sarpasatra Yajna, and over there we have like Vaishampayan Muni, who is the disciple of Vedavyasa, first narrated it, and also he is the same one when after some time in Janmejaya was already king of Takshila, and the Maharishi Vaishampayan come back, and he basically narrated the strategy and the politics to him. He also narrated the knowledge of Dhanurveda to him. And that was also happened in Takshila. That's why Takshila is one of the key place for Indian archery, or like till we know, because we don't know before, we don't have any document or information before the Vaishampayan Dhanurveda. And that's why, in my opinion, Takshila is one of the key and key city for that. And also in the Takshila University, whatever the information we have available, archery was one of the main subject which was teaching in Takshila. So Takshila was very deeply focused for archery and warfare training, and also politics, because Acharya Chanakya also from there, which was Acharya of politics and Arthashastra. So that's why the Takshila make more important during the early times. And then like I talked before that a lot of people say that we don't have much literature available. So I basically put some literature. This is not even everything, but whatever the information we have it, I basically, if you can go through one by one, it's like we have first two as a Dhanurveda itself, which is only talk about the archery practices. But Dhanurveda is not just an archery practice, it's actually more than archery. It's all kind of weapons, and we call ayuddha. And we have different variety, we have different types used in different forms of war. So I will going to show you the whole list of it, what we have it right now. And if you, which was originally come from Niti Prakashika, which was narrated by Vaishampayan. And Niti Prakashika is the one which have like out of 8 chapters, 7 chapters are dedicated to Dhanurveda. And the remaining is like Kodanda Mandana or Manasullas or Sangam literature. They all have a small information, but when you collect all those information, you can able to get so much detail from start to end. Even and like another one is Vishnu Dharmottar. Vishnu Dharmottar is basically talk about uh, how the archer should stand and how we can practice, what are the shlok we should narrate, and everything in that detailing. It doesn't talk about warfare and strategy very much, but it's talk about the focus on like how the archer should behave. So that's also defined over there. And then Shukraniti is one of the important, which describes so much detailing of Agnyastra, and a lot of people don't know that in ancient India, Agnyastra were using it, and it was actually were using till 18th to 19th century. One of the British uh, I am forgetting his name, but he basically did all the documentation of different types of tribes and different types of weapons they were using it. And he defined in his book that like in Indian archers are using Agnyastra, and I'll show in the picture how it looks like it. And in Shukraniti, it's basically defined as Agni Churna, which basically in the modern day, we can call it as gunpowder. And then like Guru Shishya Parampara, that's like one point I wanted to discuss a little bit, that a lot of people heard about Guru Shishya Parampara, but they don't know what is it. So I just want to like put together and I just read it quickly, that in the tradition of Sanatan Dharma, whenever people realize something immense value in their lives, they did not immediately hide it and patent it like nowadays in the modern world we do. They sought out to the others and work in the pursuit that say pursuit with the same knowledge to pass into them and establish a lineage to pursue that knowledge system future. So what happened is like they find the people, like example, if I wanted to learn and try to find some immense information about Dhanurveda, I want to teach other people. So I will try to create a knowledge-based system as a lineage that I will teach another person and let another person think more into the subject and then come up with more better and enhance it and then and train another person. So that's how the knowledge transfer used to happen in the ancient India. And that's why the Guru Shishya Parampara was always very important. And in Niti Prakashika or also in Mahabharata, both the places basically talk about how the Dhanurveda knowledge transfer happened. So in both the books like Niti Prakashika and Mahabharata, they say that Lord Brahma is the one who basically created the Dhanurveda with 100,000 verses, and it was transferred to Mahadeva, or we can call Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva basically transferred to Skanda, who was his son, with the 50,000 verses, and from Skanda is transferred to Indra with 25,000 verses. So it's keep going and go on and go on, and it's at last get from Gosera to Vedavyas in the 300 verses, and they basically summarized it and make it more comprehensive. And from there, Vedavyas to Vaishampayan turn into 100 verses, and Vaishampayan teaches Janmajay into the 8 particular verses, or we can call it 8 chapters, because when you go in the detailing, they talk a lot of detail within those 8 verses. So in Dhanurveda, we have like mostly defined the 4 different angas or 4 different limbs or branches. which basically define the different types of weapons. So the first is goes the Mukta weapons, which are total 12 in number. And those weapons are basically like the name itself defined. Mukta means free, and you can basically able to throw it or release it from your hand. Those weapons are actually the Mukta weapon. A Mukta weapon, like example, bow and arrow, you can call, or a spear, or something you can able to throw. And Amukta weapons are the one which you can hold and fight, like the knife or the sword, or like these are the more lot of more weapons which you define in it. And there are total 32 in number. Oh, sorry, 12 in number. So Mukta and Amukta combine 32 in number. So that's number of weapons actually defined in our Dhanurveda. And then there is Mukta Amukta weapon. So Mukta Amukta weapon, basically we have it 44 in numbers and 5 other counter missile, you can call it. So, but the problem is, and the information we have available till today, there is only names available. It doesn't define how it looks like, what the use of it, what the purpose of it. It doesn't say anything. It just gave us the names. And same with the Mantra Mukta. There are 6 Mantra Mukta weapons, which also only define the names. It doesn't say what mantras can be used, why, how it used, nothing. It just basically gave us the names of it. So we can predict, but we don't know exactly how those are used. And wow, so those two sections, we don't have much detail other than just the name. But Amukta and Amukta, we have proper detailing available in our Dhanurveda. So here are the 12 in numbers. So Mukta weapons are like example. Let's go from one by one here. So Dhanu is just a bow, and Dhanu is the word which was used as a Dhanurveda also, because it was a primary weapon for the Vedic people in the ancient India. And a lot of people probably are hearing first time that arrow used to call it issue. And a lot of people, a lot of modern terms, we use either tir or we use either ban. These tir is actually a Turkic origin word. It's not even Indian word, like tir kaman. And ban is more like in the North India, when people use Devanagari more, start using the ban as a arrow. But originally in the older times, or in how it's defined, it's used to call it as an issue. And there are different types of arrows, and all detailing we'll talk later. And then there is a bindipal, which is some kind of crooked club also used. And then shakti. So a lot of people also heard or watch in the series that that somebody used the shakti weapon or something to kill or to destroy the army. Shakti is not like something like fancy. It's basically any type of a spear used to call Shakti. So Shakti is basically a spear, or vice versa, you know. And then again is like Drughar is another type of wooden mace used for throwing for Mukta weapons. And then the Tomar is another type of spear, but it's a little bit longer than Shakti. And then Nalika is like the name defined is like a nali or some kind of like pipe, but it's used for basically the archery purpose. And Nalika is basically the half pipe is like in the bottom, it is like curved, where you can put your arrow and then release it. And it's actually used for smaller arrows than the regular size. So if we can assume that the regular size arrows are around 30-inch, the smaller arrows will be like around 10 to 12 inches were used for use with Nalika. And in our day-to-day life in India, we basically used tukka. If in the Hindi phrase, we can say tukka lag gaya or tukka mar diya. So basically tukka is the word originally for that small arrow. And it was continuation using in our memory but we actually don't know what is tukka is. Tukka is basically that small arrow used through Nalika. Or you can call it the small darts also, but darts is a little bit different. And Nalika's arrows are, and we have some picture I'll show you later in the slide, how these arrows looks like it. And then lagud is another type of club used for it, and pash is a laos or nose you can use it, and chakra is we still using it, like especially in the gatka, which is the Sikh martial art, and you can see a lot of Nihang Sikh or other Sikh warriors use the chakra and carrying with them. And Dantakantag is another like a two-tooth horn, which was used also as a mukta weapon. And Musundi is also is octagonal headed club used to throw also in the mukta weapon. So these are the 12 weapon actually defined with lot of detail, like how it should look like it, what the height, what the color, and everything with proper detailing in our Dhanurveda. And then there's another 20 numbers, which is a mukta weapon. So Vajra, so like again, like Vajra is also people think is some kind of celestial weapon. I will show you the picture later. It was actually using till 19th century. Oh, sorry, 18th century, if I'm not wrong. And how it looks like it. So Vajra is a type of weapon, you can call it, which was used by holding in hand. And Ili is a hand sword. So we have like a talwar is the uh, modern word we're using it. So talwar is not like very old word. It's come from around 10 to 11th century. It's not older than that. Before that, the ili is the word used for the sword. And it was continuously using with a lot of people, and that's why it's defined in the Dhanurveda. And then the Parshu is the battle axe. We have like Parshuram, which basically denoted because of his Parshu. So Parshu is another one. And then Gosera is it's basically defined like how it looks like it, but it doesn't know, we don't know exactly how its head look like it. So it's like it's kind of arrow you can call it, or it's basically a cow-headed spear because of the name is Goshi. It's unfortunately it doesn't have proper detailing, but we can talk more later about it. And then Asidhenu is basically a small knife, like a Qatar, we can call it in the modern term in India. And Lavitra, also another type of cutting hook, basically. So it's basically, most probably, I'm guessing, it's using for fish hunting. Like it's a type of a spear you're using while holding in hand and basically killing and grabbing the fish. And then Astar. So it's not Astra, it's the Astar. And Astar actually called for the boomerang. And we basically use that for another weapon for which modern term we think like boomerang. And there's another term I'm missing right now. It's actually mostly used in the Tamil literature, and in the southern India, it was one of the major weapon during the British and Maratha war in the first war. And kunta also is a type of spear. And then Sturn is either is an anvil or is type of hammer, you can call it. And Pras is also a small spear or dart, but my guess is a small spear because mostly it's all using by holding in your hand. And Pinak or Trishula is common because of Lord Shiva. We know that how Trishul look like it. And Pinak, that's another which you can hold and fight. Then Gada is also famous because of Duryodhan and Bhim. And Mudra is another type of hammer or mallet used while you're holding. Sira is another type of plug, which is basically, you can call it, what do you call the hull, which was used by, forgetting the name, Bhagwan Krishna's brother, Balram, using it for fighting. And then Musal is the pistol of the club, as another type of club, and Pattis is a battle axe. And Pattis also a type of sword, which is also in the modern term, because 14th, 15th century, when I was doing some of my research, I found that Pattish also a type of sword they were using it. Which again, with the time, the names continue, but sometimes the weapon evolve because we and like in the last one we can talk about it, why I'm saying that. And then the battle ram is called parid, and mayuki is basically pole or a stick. Like there's another martial art, a lot of people probably aware of, like with Kalaripayattu, there's another called silabam, and those are using a stick fight, and those sticks we call mayuki in Dhanurveda. And then the last one is Satagni. Though Shatagni is basically in Ramayana, the way it's defined is different. It's and versus in Mahabharata, as we define it different. So if you combine it both, it's more like a modern day battle tank, you can call it, to basically kill 100 people. Satagni is like to burn or to create agni and kill 100 people, like burn 100 people, if you basically understand the meaning of the word. So it basically evolved with the time, and I think in Mahabharata, the way it's defined, it is basically for like as a club, like you are holding in your hand and fighting with it, versus in Ramayana it's uh, more like a battle tank. So both the one, I think we can just put it together that yeah, it can be used for both and use the same name for it. And then the Mukta and Amukta weapons. So Mukta and Amukta weapons are basically, like I said before, that it's only define the number, the define the names. So we don't know much detail. So I didn't put any names here. But if in the future, if you think we can talk about it, we can basically add more numbers into all the names into it also. And another one is the fifth is the counter astra. Uh, uh, or counter missile, basically defined by name, because Mukta Mukta also define multiple like section called Astra and Upsamharastra, and to counter those missiles basically is called the Asurastra, and which was defined 5 in number. And then the last section of that is the Mantra Mukta weapon. So Mantra Mukta weapon, like I say, there are giving a names which are 6 in numbers, which are like Vishnu Chakra, Vajrastra, Brahmastra, Kalpasak, Narayanastra, and Pashupatastra. So these are the names which was currently defined. And other than that, there are Brahmashirastra, and there are a couple of other names you can find it, which was also a Mantra Mukta weapon. But in particular, Niti Prakashika, part of the Dhanurveda, where we can see a lot of all these weapons descriptions, it's only defined these 6 weapons as a Mantra Mukta weapons. These are the some pictures you can see from 18th, 19th century. And the first one here on the left side, basically displaying in an exhibition in London, which happened somewhat in 1886. And that was actually in the colonial history, one of the biggest weapon exhibition. And all those weapons are from India. And during the time, Britishers was almost controlling most of the area, and they basically taking over like all the existing weapons. And that's one of the reasons we don't have a current training and practice about the any type of weapons. So they basically exhibited it. So that's like one of the rare picture you can find, which you have all the weapons used to use during that time, and it exhibited over there. And then the second one is actually picture from different type of arrowhead used during the Maratha time. And this one is from the Tanjavur. And this was like after Britisher win the Tanjavur, there's one of the recorder who basically recorded this in his journal. That's where I found this picture where you can see different types of arrowhead used to use in the war for uh, and he defined as like a old Hindu arrowhead because it was found into the Hindu Empire. There's another interesting one, like we talk about all those weapons names and stuff, and but it's like we don't have any detailed manuscript. So this is one of the most rare, or I can say only manuscript from 18th century we have it, which have some weapons define it with their proper name. Like if you go from the left, like I don't want to go with the whole detail, but if you can go to like like one of the if I can cursor it, if you see it here, it's called Gilol. Gilol is like in India, in the current term we call Gulel. Gulel is for like to using those rocks or marbles to throw it. It's actually come from this word Gilol. Gilol was a type of bow which actually was used to throw the marbles or the stones, which was using very long time. Like we don't know how long we can go for. But in Dhanurveda, it doesn't define very much, but it's basically in manuscripts and in detail we have it from modern term you can call we can use say it is used from almost 1,000 year old. Legem was defined more in the Persian literature, which actually used for the practice. So it's have like an iron chain associated with it, and it's used for like increase your arm strength. So it's used for that purpose. And then again, then there's a type of bow. And then like I was talking about the Agnyastra. So if you see in this particular bow and arrow picture, you see in the arrow, there is like a little at the top, this circle, or it's like a whole spherical iron head. What it was defined the way it is, like it used to have tiny holes, and they fill the gunpowder in it, or you can call it like agni churna as per the Indian literature, and they basically burn that thing before release it. And the way it's basically goes is basically explode. So that's how the Agnyastra uses this in throughout the history of India, and from Ramayana, Mahabharata till 18th to 19th century. And it was fascinating that nowadays we don't even know that how it was using it, like like a lot of people doesn't aware of it, and mostly people only think that all these weapons are used as a celestial weapons, but it's not. It's actually we're using for a very long time. And also there's another one I was talking about, the vajra. So this is how the vajra used to look like, it with like toothed horn with the iron, and a whole made up of iron was used to fight. And that was till again till 18th century, because this manuscript is from 18th century, and you can see it's written in our Devanagari script. And and then the top, and like there's other lot of names, so you can basically go detail if somebody want to read it, and if any question you can contact me. But there's so much detail we can find, and we can compare with what the weapons used to use it in Dhanurveda with this one. And then there's another manuscript also found it, and just gonna unhide it so we can cursor it more. So the same thing below. And then this, if you see this like particular looks like an arrow, but they have like a little what you call like it's a rope behind it. It's basically stick in your finger, and you put the small arrow and then release with your bow. Once we talk more in the Dhanurvidya, I will show how it works. And this is actually used to call as a nalika, which used for the tukkas or the small arrows. And here in the picture, you can see the small arrows. That's another prediction of nalika, which used for this small arrows. You can put it there and you can release it to make sure that the nalika stays. So they basically hold this through your finger and release the arrow. And then this is they call chimta. And in the modern term, like also we using the same for different purpose. It's used to use for like when somebody got hit by arrow, and if the arrow break, they use this to remove the arrowhead from the wounded body. And again, there's like different type of tarkash is here, different types of bows are here. We can discuss more in the Dhanurvidya, like what these bows used to call, and what the importance of it, and why it is different, and what material they were using to make and everything. And we can discuss more in the Dhanurvidya about like all the archery part there. And this is the last slide I want to share, that basically how, it's a really good prediction about how the ancient war used to fight. before the guns got invented. So whenever people can release the arrow, you can see in this particular picture prediction, Ma Durga is fighting with the Shumba. Shumba was asuras, and one of the Shumba was fighting with her, and she's basically cutting all his arrow within the air, and using either chakras to cut the arrows, or basically using the dvibhalla. It's called the type of arrowhead. Dvibhalla is basically two spear-headed arrow, which was used to cut the flying arrows. So it was really great picture. So I just want to share with you guys that basically we can able to see how the actual war used to be happen. So, and this is just a picture of Bhagwan Ram. He was the greatest archer of all. So I just want to like thank you with that.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. And it's a real pleasure to see all these details. Now, in your analysis, if you see when you read these did you read the entire Dhanurveda or parts of it yet?
So I read it basically, what do you call like, so we have like different Dhanurveda sections. So I read it the entire Dhanurveda by Vashishta and by Lord Shiva, or it's called the Shiva Dhanurveda. And also I read it almost all the parts of Niti Prakashika. That's when you find the most of the detail of Dhanurvidya. And Agni Puran. Agni Puran is another chapter 18 in Agni Puran is dedicated to the Dhanurveda. So we don't have like, the whole book. It's like you can found like a lot of different information can come from different part of the books. So it's like if you're reading it, like in Niti Prakashika is like basically the best summary of Dhanurveda you can ever find. Have every type of weapons, how it looks like it, how it's basically used it. It's the most detailed description by Veshampayan was given to us.
And so you said it's a Upanga. You know,
Yes.
it's not the main, but obviously the information is coming from one of the Veda, but
Right. It's a Upveda of Yajurveda.
mm, yes.
So Yajurveda have so much detail about the warfare and practice, but mostly Yajurveda was defined for our geometry and mathematics and all the yajna and karma kind of practice. So we don't have like very much detail either in it. We have some shlokas and some description, but like, to understand the Veda, it's not that easy. So what I can find is very limited knowledge in my little knowledge of, understanding the Vedas. But other than like for Veda, that's where I found it. And like Shukraniti is the first book which actually say to us that Dhanurveda is a Veda of Yajurveda.
We have all this information about different weapons,
Mm-hmm.
but we have been taught that not to keep weapons at home. It is dangerous, and most of the people don't do it. What do you think is that information coming from?
I think it's just coming from that what happened that after British banned all the weapons in India, and I think it's that the fear is still engraved in local people that if we have a weapon at home, somebody might get hurt, and that's the reason they basically say that like don't use it because like you might go for the fight and you might hurt yourself. So I think it's like. It's a good in some sense, but it's lot of bad in other sense because you basically losing the whole art of it.
Yeah, because they will make the entire population defenseless.
Exactly.
Then everyone has to follow. And even
Exactly.
today, that same laws are continuing in India, even though
Right.
on Dashera we worship our weapons, but still the weapons are banned. All the good guns are not available to ordinary citizens.
Right. Right. Yeah.
303 rifles are available, which
Right.
cannot fight a terrorist with 303.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So the ultimate aim of banning the weapons was colonization, actually.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. During the 18th, end of 18th century, it was basically apply. I forget the law name, but they basically implement that law so that nobody. And it happened after the Anglo-Sikh War. I don't know much if you know the much history, but about the Anglo-Sikh War. So after Anglo-Sikh War happened, which was one of the last after Anglo-Maratha, Anglo-Sikh War before 1957 Independence War. Anglo-Sikh War was like the Sikh Empire ended in 1849, and before Anglo-Sikh War, so the Sikh were giving them really hard fight to the Britishers. And what happened after they banned that, they still continue using, because those Nihang Sikh and some other Sikh continue using the weapons. So they basically collecting for 30 years. It took them 30 years for Britishers to collect all the weapons from Punjab area, which is modern, not modern day Punjab, Punjab of the Ranjit Singh Punjab, which was like the whole northwest region from Jammu Kashmir till Afghanistan. So that whole area, they took them 30 years to collect, and I don't know how many people they actually killed who used to have a weapons. And they basically bring it, either burn it, destroy it, or bring it in the exhibitions, like in like almost all the British or European, I can say, the museums are full of Indian weapons, which was from during the time of 18th, 19th century. And we have very limited in India because of it was taking over.
Yeah, the weapons, the whole propaganda about the weapons was that only the colonial powers, just like the way the America was colonized,
Hmm.
the European settlers in the 13 states, they banned weapons to be owned by Native Americans.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And that's how the America was colonized. In fact, in 1908, in my last book, Gold, Glory, and God, I do
Hmm.
mention over there where the 1908, the Vatican declared that America is conquered today. And
Mm.
when the European settlers became more in number, and
Right.
democracy was introduced in USA.
Hmm.
So the entire colonization depended on, it was actually a military conquest. Uh,
Right.
it was purely a
Right.
military conquest. And what happened to Native Americans after that, we all know.
Hmm.
Only 5 million are left in the US.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But no, it's just like, in India specific, like, it not only they ban the weapon, they also ban all the martial arts.
Yes. Colour pay.
So you can't practice it. Like there is only Mardani Khela was continuation through Maratha time, because of it was a part of his sports, converted into a part of his sport. What Mardani Khela was originally was a martial art tactics used by Marathas warriors. And the same thing, Silambam was from the Tamil in the southern India, and Kalaripayattu from Keralites people, or the Nayar people, Nayar Empire. So they were using all these martial arts, and they were so strong, like they were like destroying the Britishers or Dutch or other colonial powers. And because of that, they know that if they continue let them using these weapons or this practice, like they did the same way with all the Indian education system to wipe out the existing education system and impose the whole new system. The same thing they did with the martial arts. They basically get rid of the entire martial arts.
It was very, very informative. Thank you for coming up, collecting all
Yes.
information together.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
And thank you for all the viewers for watching. So do let us know your feedback on the YouTube, and also let me know. I can see a lot of your comments right now, but we'll ask next time. Okay, thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Pankaj.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.